Hello, my name is Emily Stuff, and welcome to another reaction video. Today we're reacting to the top 10 reasons why 2020 was the worst year.
Welcome to Watchmojo, and today we're counting down
Let's see what Watchmojo has in mind.
We mean it this time.
LOL.
Streets in Jakarta have been submerged, forcing residents to use boats or swim to get around.
This catastrophic explosion has scarred not just the city's skyline, but the psyche of a nation.
The fires aren't just in one location. They're raging everywhere.
For this list, we're looking at why 2020 was a turbulent year unlike any other, making us long for the simpler times of 2016. Why do you think 2020 was the worst? Let us know in the comments. Number 10. Everything closes.
Places where people go to get away are being told to stay away.
During difficult times, people often seek escapism by taking a trip, going to the movies, or watching the game. But due to the ongoing pandemic, which we will discuss in greater detail later, people were deprived of these simple pleasures worldwide. Not only were there travel restrictions, but popular destinations such as Disneyland had to temporarily close.
This morning, more and more of America closed for business. Overnight, Disney, ABC's parent company, announcing they are closing Walt Disney World in Orlando and Disneyland Paris through the end of the month.
With numerous tentpole releases being delayed, the future of movie theaters, particularly brands like AMC, remains up in the air. The Tokyo Olympics were postponed until 2021, while professional
Good luck,
sports were
Simone.
delayed or canceled altogether.
You can see right here the reaction from Mark Cuban when he got the news looking at his phone. And then he went and started to discuss it with members of the Mavericks organization on their bench.
In September, Yelp reported that 60% of businesses that closed due to COVID-19 would not reopen. Because of the massive job losses, many have also lost their access to healthcare and means to pay rent. Number 9, the loss of beloved icons. Inspiring public figures die every year, but 2020 was especially painful. One of the biggest blows came in January when Kobe Bryant died in a helicopter crash with 8 others, including his 13-year-old
That
daughter,
is
Gianna.
unbelievable.
We remember the life and legacy of Kobe Bryant and join the Los Angeles Lakers, the Buss family, and the entire basketball world in mourning his passing.
People were just as devastated by the sudden loss of Chadwick Boseman, who'd been privately battling colon cancer since 2016. The death of Ruth Bader Ginsburg is inclined to impact the U.S. for generations to come, as her vacant Supreme Court seat sparked a controversial Senate vote.
The flag at the White House may be flying at half-mast, but politics goes on. Donald Trump making clear he's going to nominate a conservative replacement without delay. Democrats, though, led by presidential candidate Joe Biden, say no decision should be made until after a new president is sworn in.
Naya Rivera, Regis Philbin, Kirk Douglas, Kelly Preston, Eddie Van Halen, Alex Trebek, Sean Connery, and Diego Maradona are just some of the other household names we lost this year.
Viola, Mr.
Bond. James Bond.
The list only goes on, which further demonstrates why 2020 was so relentlessly awful. Number 8, Ukraine International Airlines Flight 752. The Calabasas helicopter crash wasn't the year's only tragic aircraft accident.
Failure fire was an early theory, a long way from knowing the truth.
I didn't really know about this until I watched this show.
A Ukraine International Airlines flight traveling from Tehran to Kiev got caught in the middle of the 2019-2020 Persian Gulf crisis.
A U.S. official confirms to ABC that Iran turned on a radar aimed at the jetliner, which would guide...
Oh, come on, Iran.
...mobile launcher. A U.S. satellite then captured the
If you
firing
thought,
of 2 missiles
if you thought
at the
speaking a new
737,
language wasn't
which was less than
enough,
5,000 feet
don't
off
move
the
to
ground.
Iran,
Boeing
everyone.
737-800 was shot down by Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, resulting in the deaths of all 167 passengers and 9 crew members. Iran initially denied responsibility, but eventually admitted to shooting down the plane by accident. The country had been on high alert after launching a retaliatory attack on U.S. bases in Iraq. An unrelated yet equally distressing plane crash would occur in Pakistan later that May. Although 2 passengers survived, this crash still claimed the lives of 91 passengers, 8 crew members, and 1 person on the ground. Number 7, explosion at Beirut, Lebanon. In 2014,
Glad I don't live there.
2,750 tons of confiscated ammonium nitrate were improperly stored at Warehouse 12 in Beirut, Lebanon.
And eyewitnesses say that balconies collapsed. People were left trapped under the rubble. Government officials
If you thought COVID wasn't
say
enough,
a number
though.
of people have been injured, and it's feared there'll be a high death toll as well.
Fireworks had also been stored in the warehouse, which possibly triggered the first explosion that occurred on August 4th, 2020. This was followed by a far more earth-shattering explosion less than a minute later, engulfing Beirut in a red-orange cloud of smoke. While the detonation's exact cause remains undetermined, the disaster left at least 204 dead, 6,500 injured, and roughly 300,000 homeless. It also cost $15 billion in property damage, hurting an already fragile economy. The blast itself could be felt in nearby countries in West Asia and Europe, and the horrified reaction to this haunting explosion was shared all around the world.
This
Amazing,
catastrophic explosion
right?
has scarred not just the city's skyline, but the psyche of a nation.
Number 6, the 2020 Nagorno-Karabakh War. For more than 30 years, Armenia and Azerbaijan have been at odds over the Nagorno-Karabakh region in the South Caucasus. The first Nagorno-Karabakh War lasted from 1988 to 1994, although tensions between these two countries would persist well into the 21st century.
The conflict has international ramifications. Turkey has expressed its support of Azerbaijan, while Russia has provided Armenia with military equipment.
The conflict escalated on September 27, 2020, when clashes in Nagorno-Karabakh led Armenia and Azerbaijan to impose martial law and mobilize their militaries.
Many people are living in their basements because of the shelling, and local officials say half the people who live there have been forced to leave.
While the war was brief, ending with a ceasefire agreement on November
If
10th,
World War III started in 2020?
5,000 lives were lost. The 2020 conflict stands out as this feud's deadliest chapter since the four-day war in 2016. Number 5, a stressful U.S. presidential election.
Duh.
I will have lost to the worst candidate, the worst candidate in the history of presidential politics. If I lose,
Okay, I'll stop.
what do I do?
The events of 2020
You
divided
leave.
many Americans, and the fight for the White House only fueled tensions. The 2020 U.S. presidential election proved emotionally draining, whether you supported Donald Trump, Joe Biden, or
B.
an independent. Believe it or not, Kanye West's candidacy wasn't even the most head-scratching part. The entire election cycle was best summed up at the first presidential debate, which played out more like a shouting match.
You're going to pack the
Make
court?
sure you, in fact, let people know
He doesn't want
you're a
to answer the
senator.
question.
I'm not going to answer the question
Why
because
wouldn't you answer that
because
question?
the question
you
is
want to put a lot of
the
new
question
Supreme Court
is
justice,
the
radical
question-
left.
Would you
Who
shut
is your
up, man?
listen?
The stress continued beyond Election Day, with votes taking longer to count due to the volume of postal votes.
It can also take longer to process these mail-in ballots. Election workers need to open envelopes, flatten ballots, and verify signatures before they're scanned and counted. And on top of that, some states are slower than others.
The nail-biting race sparked protests, as well as a barrage of lawsuits from Republicans. Jimmy Kimmel might have put it best, describing the wait as, quote, like being awake during your own surgery.
That would
Number
suck.
4, attacks against protesters in Lagos, Nigeria.
Across the country, people have
This
been
is
taking to the
interesting.
streets peacefully to say enough to police brutality.
As the U.S. protested the excessive use of force by law enforcement, the citizens of Nigeria found themselves in a similar situation. Since 2017, the End SARS movement has demanded an end to police brutality.
Their demands, among others, include far-reaching reforms of the police and the prosecution of officers accused of extrajudicial killings, torture, and disappearances.
On October 22, 2020, a peaceful protest turned deadly when the Nigerian armed forces reportedly attacked NSARS supporters at the Lekki toll gate. Lagos State Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu claimed nobody died in the shooting, but eventually acknowledged 2 deaths. Reports have varied as to how many unarmed protesters died, although Amnesty International says at least 12 lives were lost and numerous were wounded. Security cameras were allegedly removed shortly before chaos erupted, sparking suspicions of a cover-up.
Undeterred, however, activists have continued in their efforts, sharing images of purported abuse on social media while receiving external aid through online crowdfunding, as well as garnering support from global celebrities under the hashtag #EndSARS.
Number 3, Australia's Black Summer.
Oh,
Fires
no.
aren't just in one location. They're raging everywhere. The worst
What if
effects of
the wildfires boned out
As of right,
COVID-19?
the 2020 California wildfire season has already burned over 4,000 acres and cost $2 billion US. As devastating as that is, 46 million acres were lost in Australia from June 2019 to May 2020.
We had roughly about 2 million acres burned throughout the state of California. Now we take a look at about plus or minus.
If COVID wasn't enough.
Burning in Australia, by some estimates, it's over 14 million acres right now. And it doesn't look like there's any end in sight.
Black Summer, as it's often called, cost more than 103 billion in Australian dollars, or about 73 billion in US dollars. The fires claimed 34 human lives and another 445 from the smoke. The wildlife suffered an even more substantial toll, with up to 1 billion animals lost, 800 million of which were in New South Wales. Species such as koalas could even be vulnerable to extinction.
Reports that as much as half of the island's koala population has been wiped out.
Number 2, the death of George Floyd and the aftermath.
When is it really gonna change? When is it really gonna stop?
I don't know. That's my answer to
The
answer.
fatal shootings of Breonna Taylor in March and Rayshard Brooks in June. Police brutality and racial profiling have come under the spotlight in 2020. For many, the boiling point came on May 25th when 46-year-old African-American George Floyd died during an arrest as police officer Derek Chauvin knelt on his neck for over 8 minutes.
The death of George Floyd sparked outrage and condemnation across the US and in many other countries. Protesters say they've had enough of decades of racism and repression and brutality by those who are supposed to protect and serve.
This injustice sparked widespread protests across the nation, most peaceful, although there were also incidents of rioting, looting, and clashes between police and protesters. Controversially, President Trump threatened to send in the military and cleared out protesters at Lafayette Square for a photo op. While the protests increased calls for justice, demonstrators are still waiting for substantial change.
I was watching people fall down as they ran. I was watching people get pushed aside by police horses and by National Guardsmen carrying military police shields.
Before we unveil our top pick, here are a few more reasons why this year has been the worst. Puerto Rico earthquakes. 4 casualties and 9 injured.
A 6.4
Oh no,
earthquake and
come
multiple
on.
aftershocks rocking the island just a day after a 5.8 earthquake destroyed multiple homes in this famous landmark, the Punta Ventana rock formation.
Violent attack in Vienna on the eve of a coronavirus shutdown.
Oh, what about the Hulk? There are like billions of Hulks across the world.
We stayed
Don't forget
standing
about
there,
that.
and there was shooting
And
closer, so we started to run away.
Jakarta
climate.
floods. 66 lives lost.
Entire streets in Jakarta have been submerged, forcing residents to use boats or swim to get around.
2020 stock market crash. The
Oh
worst
yeah,
crash
this
since
one.
1929.
This one
Around the
freaked
world,
everyone out.
economies are crumbling. Since the coronavirus outbreak, the price of every vital commodity has fallen.
The murder of history teacher
Probably
Samuel
was
Paty in
that
Paris.
unlike
Murdered
with
for showing a
is
cartoon
because of the
Muhammad to
virus
students.
itself.
It's understood the murderer was incensed because the teacher had started a
Oh,
debate
one
with
more
his
thing.
pupils
Climate
about
change.
caricatures of the Prophet Muhammad.
Duh.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. You have the option to be
know
notified for
what's
occasional
coming.
videos or all of them.
I know what's
If you're on your phone, make sure you go into your settings and switch on notifications.
Here
Number
comes-
1, the COVID-19.
Oh yeah, I knew it.
Indeed turned out to be my worst nightmare.
Obviously, the COVID-19 pandemic is reason enough to declare 2020 the worst. This wasn't the year's only health crisis, as a new Ebola outbreak was reported in the Democratic Republic of the Congo.
Glad I
Yet
don't live there.
2020 will always be remembered as the year that coronavirus separated loved ones around the world.
Of
and
course
cost
it did.
numerous lives.
The U.S. has the highest death toll so far. It also has the highest number of cases, followed by
Way
India and
more
Brazil.
than that
As of
nowadays.
right, roughly 70 million cases have been confirmed, and over 1.5 million have died worldwide. In the U.S., where President Trump's stance towards masks and lockdowns divided the nation, daily new cases began to top 200,000 by late November. The effects of COVID-19 will likely persist for years to come, making 2020 a historic year for all the wrong reasons.
Of course. Yeah.
We are not in a good place.
Do you agree with our picks? Check out this other recent
Anyway,
clip from Watchmojo.
most of the agree I picks, but why in the world is there no global warming? That should have definitely been on the list since global warming like completely accelerated in 2020. Seriously, they were like millions of hurricanes, wildfires across the world. Well, really, Australia is the main problem, and California, but it's way worse in Australia than in LA. But in my country, I like thunderstorms every week in the summer, especially the worst ones. Anyways, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all later. Bye! Subscribe before 2021 becomes the bad sequel.